Manx Radio Sport.
Very good evening and welcome to Friday Sport Preview on Manx Radio on this snowy, wintry day on the Isle of Man. I'm Rob Pritchard with you until 6:30. Hope you've been able to brave the cold and have a pleasant Friday. Coming up tonight, the quarter-finals of the ECAP FA Cup are scheduled to take centre stage in Manx football tomorrow, whilst there's a selection of league fixtures also penned in for Saturday. In rugby, the final games of the season beckon for Douglas and Vagabonds respectively in the UK competitions, whilst we take a look at the latest Manx trophy fixtures in domestic competition. And some pivotal ties are on the agenda in Manx hockey this weekend as we enter the final few games of the campaign. That is all to come this evening. Just before we get things underway tonight, if you're just tuning in to Manx Radio, very good evening to you, and just a bit of a reminder of some of the travel and weather updates that we have so far. We'll start off with travel, so just to remind people that the current closures on the Mountain Road, Faulty Will Road, Bennypot Road and the A3 from Ramsey to Castletown Road, the closures on those have all been extended until midday tomorrow. So midday tomorrow, the 10th of March. The Department of Infrastructure has confirmed the situation will be reassessed at that point, and it is worth noting the closure on the Mountain Road does not include the route from Hilbury, and the Cregna Bar remains accessible from Douglas and Onchan. And in terms of the weather, just a reminder for anyone this evening that an amber weather warning is now in force for ice and frost. The areas most likely to be affected are hills for the whole period, but all island this evening and tonight. And that notice is in place until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. So an amber weather warning for ice and frost in place across the island until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. So please only travel if it is absolutely essential, and if you do have to travel, please travel safely. Okay, let's take a look at the sporting action that, well, we have scheduled for this weekend, but I think it's worth putting a caveat on everything that with the wintry conditions we've had, that all the schedules that you'll hear from tonight are subject to change, potentially at short notice. But we will start off with football, and he's braved the weather. He's made it up to Broadcasting House as ever, soldiering on as always. Tony Mepham, good evening.
Yeah, a bit of a surprise, isn't it, Rob, to what we had last week, to what we've got today. But hopefully tonight's kind to us, and tomorrow morning's kind to us, so we can get some football games on. But there's a lot of uncertainty, and we'll try and bring the news to you as quick as the decisions have been made.
And in terms of the processes, just before we get into things, naturally there will be pitch inspections taking place tomorrow morning. So what's the procedure around the weather that we've currently been having?
Yeah, I think the key point is the travel details that we get from the police. If the police are highly recommending not to travel, then we look at that one very seriously indeed. But pitch-wise, I'm just looking sort of stationed around the island. Foxdales was under snow not too long ago. Peels was, Ballafletcher was. So it's all round a little bit. Ramsey seems to have been the one that hasn't had as much snow. But we'll make that decision. We're going to try and make it as early as we can, 10 o'clock in the morning. And if any sort of clubs do have concerns, by all means, just send me a text tonight, and we'll have a little look at it. But it's all down to the freeze tonight, and obviously what temperatures come in the morning to try and thaw the pitch is ready for a 2 o'clock, 2:30 kickoff.
Very well, those inspections to come, so fingers crossed we can get some games on. Well, let's take a look at the fixtures that we do have penned in for Saturday. We'll start off with what's taking centre stage, the quarter-finals of the ECAP FA Cup. Just 8 teams left, and only one team from Division 2 is still in that. We'll come to that in a moment. We'll start off with the first tie we've got on the list here, and this could be an absolute cracker if it goes ahead. Russian United, they're going to be at home to Corinthians.
Well, you're right, Rob, and when you look at Russian, I think the current form that they were in up until 7 days ago, just thought to myself they're going to take some beating, but Corinthians did beat Braddon, and 4-0. They've got one or two sort of players back from injury, so it makes them a little bit stronger, makes Ben Coulter's job a little bit easier. But Russian, I don't know what happened last week. They were 2-0 up, and then to get beat 6-3 by Laxey. Nothing against Laxey because they're a good team, but for whatever reason, defensively for once, Russian just slipped up, and they can't afford to do that tomorrow because Corinthians got a good forward line. They've got Josh Rydings in there. They've got Jay Chatwood as well, and I would think there's a good chance of Joe Middleton being included in that squad. And you've got to remember Luke Murray's back in the squad for Corinthians as well. So I've got to go, I think, just for Corinthians to win it, but don't be surprised if this doesn't go to extra time.
Very well, then we move out to the west of the island, and Colby, the last remaining Division 2 side in the competition, well, they'll be hoping to do a bit of a giant killing, but my word, do they have a stern test. They're going to be away at the current Premier League leaders, Peel.
Well, they certainly do, and the big plus for Peel is Lee Gale's included in the squad, so that's a nice player to bring in. And when you've got other players looking around them, you've got sort of Matthew Woods, you've got other good young players in there, Taylor Andrews, Scott Horn, you've got Dawson in goal, so it's a good team, and that's why they're top of the league. But, Colby have done all right. They had a recent good scrap with Castletown in the GAH Call-Up Woods Cup, and I'm pretty certain that, everyone will be looking to try and turn Peel over. But it's going to be so difficult, Rob, because Peel are in banging form, scoring plenty of goals. And with Lee Gale included in that squad, then it's going to be very difficult. You have to go for Peel to win.
And then another game out in the west of the island, St John's United hosting St George's.
Yeah, it's interesting, this one, because when I looked at St George's last week, and the Peel faithful honestly thought that it was going to be a tough game for them. Now, when you look at it on chances, St George's lived a charmed life, and I have to be honest with it. And Johnny Myers pulled off 2 or 3 really good saves in goal. I don't know where they are with that number 1 position for the goalkeeper this week, but certainly Johnny will be hoping to have people like Sean Quay and Chris Bass in there. Just thought, right the way through that they battled hard, but it was a real sort of difficult game for them. As we're with St John's, they've showed it before. They're a good side when they sort of tick, when they all click together. I think maybe Sam Ingham might be included back in that squad. Will Penholrick's been playing well, no doubt about it. The man scoring all the goals is Callum Taggart, and that could be the difference. I'm going to go for St John's to win.
Very well, then rounding off the ECAP FA Cup quarter-finals tomorrow, Laxey, they're going to be at home over at Glen Road against Douglas Royal. Yeah, I'm going to go for Laxey in this one, and the reason why I say that, I just think that result last week, Rob, will give them massive confidence, because the young players, Will Cowan 1, Ethan Hawley 2, they started scoring goals on a regular basis. Will got 2 last week, Nathan got 1, and when you look at the rest of them around it, they're playing with a lot of confidence, and I just feel that result and the performance that I watched against Uni Mills recently just wasn't them. Something was missing. Fair enough, Uni Mills are a very good side, but they just didn't defend well, they didn't attack well. But against the Douglas Royal side that do have their sort of top players in there, we know who they are. Macari Brennan's one of them, but I just think Laxey at the moment with that result last week will win it. Very well, so the ECAP FA Cup quarter-finals, all 4 of those games kicking off at 2 p.m. And then we do have a selection of league games kicking off at 2:30. We have 1 game in the Canada Life Men's Premier League. Yes, and that one is a massive game when you look at that table. It's Moran who are 11th against Douglas High School Old Boys who are 13th. Old Boys have home advantage, and from what I've been hearing, they've been playing well, even though they've got a slightly older squad. As where with Moran, they know they need some points in here. There's a 5-point difference between them and Old Boys, so if they did get 3 here, then it puts them in the driving seat. I'm going to go for Moran. Very well, then we move on to DPS Limited Division 2. 5 games there, including another meeting of 2nd versus 3rd. Yeah, it is, and let's look at the one at the top of the sheet first, and that's Foxdale against Douglas and District. I think Foxdale will win that one. Braddon against Jims. They had a game against each other recently, and I think, if I remember rightly, Jim's won it. But I think Braddon will win this one. Castletown against Michael, that's the one you're looking at, first against third, and what a terrific game that's going to be. And who would bet against Nathan Cardy? Or, when you look at Michael, they've got their jewels in the crown to score goals as well. So I'm going to go for Castletown to win. Douglas Athletic against Ramsey Youth Centre. You've got to go for Ramsey Youth Centre. And Governors Athletic against St Mary's. You've got to go for St Mary's take victory there. Very well, then let's move into the combination division, starting off with Canada Life Combi 1, 3 games there tomorrow. Yeah, Ramsey against Peel. We keep saying that if there's going to be a slip-up, Peel are the only ones that can sort of match Russian, but, against Ramsey, I think Peel will win it. Onken against Union Mills, going to be a close affair. I'm going to go for Onken just to win. And Ayr against St John's. I've got confidence in St John's. I think they've looked really good in this Combination 1 league this year. John is to win. Very well, then rounding off the fixtures on Saturday, we have 2 games in DPS Limited Combination 2. Yeah, and it's a big game at the top, isn't it? Malou against St Mary's. St Mary's could do with winning this one, just gains a little bit of point advantage against them, and I'm going to go for St Mary's to win against Malou. And Michael against Jims, I'm going to go for Michael to win that. Very well, those are your fixtures for Saturday. Let's move into Sunday. We've already mentioned an FA Cup selection of games taking place on Saturday, but it's the same on Sunday because we have the first round of the Canada Life Women's FA Cup. 2 games there on Sunday. Yeah, and I think, the 2 big teams have been kept out of it, so it's good to see. Malou against Onken. I think Onken will win that. And Douglas Royal against Castletown. Castletown still struggling to get that full team out, but they're still battling away. So you go with Douglas Royal to take victory there. Very well, and last but certainly not least, on Sunday we have 2 games in the Masters football.
Yeah, and I think if my sums are right, I think Colby can near enough wrap the league up this weekend. So it's Governors Athletic against Colby. That kicks off at 3:40 at the Bowl. And you've got Onken against Peel. You've got 2:10 kick-off on this one. And I think when you see this, 2 top sides in the Masters football, Onken against Peel, what a great game that's going to be. I'm going to go for Peel just to win that.
Very well, those are your fixtures for Saturday and Sunday. Tony, just finally, we touched on it a few minutes ago, but just in case people didn't hear it, when roughly will a final decision be made on these games tomorrow? I
would hope that we'll have the information out by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We'll listen to what everybody says first, certainly, the police, and then we'll make a decision at 10. So, yeah, listen out.
Excellent. Well, Tony, thank you very much. As always, we're going to turn now to rugby, and it's now the business end of the season for the Manx sides competing in UK competitions. Douglas and Vagabonds are scheduled to face their final games this weekend on home soil in the Regional 2 North West and Counties 3 ADM Lancs Cheshire League, respectively, whilst domestic games in the Ravenscroft Manx Trophy are also pending to continue on Saturday. As ever, I caught up with Dave Christian to get his thoughts on the weekend's fixtures.
Douglas play Firwood Waterloo in Regional 2 North West. Douglas third from bottom. They've got a 9-point buffer on the other teams. However, the teams below them do have games in hand. Wilmslow tomorrow is one of the 2 teams below Douglas. They play Anselmians, the champions-elect. That's not looking good for Wilmslow. If Wilmslow don't pick up any points from that game, they can't catch Douglas, so that looks to be pretty much sorted. But the other side below Douglas is Broughton Park. They've got 3 games left to play. They need to pick up points in all of those to overtake Douglas. So pressure a little bit on Douglas. Destiny is more or less in their own hands. If they can knock over Firwood Waterloo at Portashee tomorrow afternoon, happy days. That, however, is a little bit more difficult than it's going to sound. Waterloo have won 13 out of their 19 fixtures. Douglas have won 5 out of their 21 fixtures. So things are looking a little bit more difficult for Douglas. They're missing a few players. They do have Guy Wood coming back into the squad, but word on the street, yesterday at least, was that Glyn Hoosen-Owen might be coming out of retirement. He's not likely to have been training all season with them either. That said, he's a good 6'8" and probably the thick end of 20 stone, so he's a good man to have in a pack of forwards, particularly if you're on soft ground, and that could be the issue for Douglas tomorrow. Obviously, we've got overnight frost coming. Who knows where that's going to end up? But as things stand, Douglas Firwood Waterloo kick-off is at 1:30 at Portashee, and a Douglas win would be happy days for them. Firwood Waterloo aren't challenging at the top end of the table, so there's a chance they may just take their foot off the gas. But if Douglas are missing some of their regulars, then it's likely that they're not going to be as strong as perhaps they otherwise would be. And on paper, at least, you've got to fancy Waterloo for the win. In Counties 3 ADM, it is definitely bottom of the table stuff. Vagabonds haven't had a brilliant season. They're bottom of the table. If they pick up a win against Bury tomorrow, they've got a chance of not finishing bottom. And with promotion and relegation in this particular league being determined by an end-of-season committee, there's an opportunity here that if Vaggers get finished off the bottom, they might just hold station for a season. Since Christmas, Francie Commissions has come in as coach. They've recently acquired Daniel Bomwick from Ramsey. Bomwick with 170-plus league appearances for Ramsey under his belt. Vastly experienced player and multi-positional as well. He can play just about anywhere in the back line and even in the back row of the pack if need be. So they've picked up a really useful player there in Bomwick. Him and Francie seem to have turned the corner in terms of performance. I've watched them a couple of times since Christmas, and the performances are definitely on the up. They've had an away win at Port Sunlight. That's their only win so far of the season. But with Bury sitting in the doldrums a little bit, they've got a great opportunity to pick up some points. Kick-off at the moment up at Ballafletcher is scheduled for 2:15. Again, there's a worry of the frozen pitch. Vagabonds have got a contingency plan in place. The game will switch to Ramsey's Muirk Park if the pitch at Ballafletcher doesn't recover in time for kick-off. A decision on that's likely to be made sometime before lunchtime tomorrow. That's going to be a late call, and fair play to them. On paper, I fancy, because Vagabond's team is unchanged pretty much from last week, apart from a little bit of a tinker in the forwards, I fancy Vagabonds have got a great chance of pulling off a home win with their final game of the season. Whether or not that's enough, that's in the lap of the gods, and we'll pick that one up when the season finishes. Finally, domestically, we've got a couple of games in the Ravenscroft Manx Trophy. The chatter behind the scenes in the week is that player availability may be an issue. I know there's a large contingent from Ramsey gone down to Twickenham for the England-France game, and that's going to cause pressure on the domestic game. At the moment, Southern Nomads Whites are due to play Ramsey's Blues and Western Vikings at Ballakillia Park. And in the other game, it's the Eastern Barbarians at home. That's at Portashee against Ramsey's Reds and Castletown. I suspect player numbers are going to mean that we're going to lose one of those games. But again, until that's confirmed by the clubs, I can't really say for sure. But at the moment, those games are going ahead on paper at 2:15 kickoff.
Manx Radio Sport.
Dave Christian with that report there. And finally, tonight we turn to hockey, and a number of pivotal league ties are scheduled to take place this weekend as we enter the final few games of the campaign. There are top two clashes, one in the Men's Premier League and also in Ladies Division 1, making up part of another busy programme. I spoke to Ben Cunningham this week to find out what we have in store so far this weekend. We'll start with the Ladies Premier League. We have two games there, and the first is the earlier pushback at 12:35. Castle Rushen High School and it's Castletown B, and they take on Vikings A.
Yeah, this will be a really good game. Castletown B need to get something from this game to avoid being relegated. It's not quite decided yet, the relegation, but they definitely need to get points from this if they can. Vikings A, though, they did draw last week against Castletown A, so it'd be interesting to see whether the B team can match their A team.
And the other game, the Ladies Premier League this weekend, 2:05 pushback at the NSC, and it's Backers A against Valkyries A.
Yeah, this one will be a close game, I think, as well. Backers A have had a really good season, but then Valkyries have now started to find a bit of form after a really slow start to their season. It'd be a close one, but I think Backers A will just have it on the day.
Then we move on to the Men's Premier League. There's 3 games there this weekend. 2 of those pushing back at 12:35. We'll start over at King William's College, and it's Castletown A against the league leaders Backers A.
I've got this down as game of the day in this league. First v second, Backers A had an absolute storming victory last week against Ramsey A, and then Castletown got the draw against Vikings A last week, 0-0 stalemate. I think it'll be close, but I think Backers A are going to be just too strong for them. Backers A's attacking force at the minute is phenomenal.
And then we move on to the other game at 12:35. That's at the NSC, and that's Backers B, and they take on Vikings A.
Yeah, this will be a really tough game for Backers B. Vikings A will definitely be out to get points back after last week's draw. I think Backers B just won't have the strength as Vikings A will have on the day, so I'm going to go for a Vikings A win there.
And rounding off the Men's Premier League, 2:05 out in the west at QE2 in Peel, Valkyries A, and they will host Ramsey A.
Yeah, this one will be a close game. Ramsey have found a bit of form, but then they had a nasty defeat last week to Backers A, but then Valkyries have picked up their form as well. This will be a close game, but I think Valkyries will be too strong on the day for Ramsey A.
Let's have a quick look through the other divisions taking place, and Ladies Division 1, we have 3 games this weekend.
And the first game in this league is Ramsey A against Vikings B, and that's at 2:05 at Ramsey Grammar School. I'm going to go for a Ramsey A win there. 3:35 at KWC, we've got derby between Backers B and Backers C, and you'd have to say the Backers B will be favourites for that one. And then the final game in this league, which is another game of the day I've got marked down, is first v second in this league, and this is Harlequins A, who are first, against Valkyries B, who are second. 1 point is between these two teams, so this game has a lot riding on it, and that's at 3:30 at the NSC.
Then into Men's Division 1, and there are 2 games there.
And the first game in this league is at 12:35 at Ramsey Grammar School. Sees Vikings C against the league leaders Harlequins A, who are absolutely flying at the minute, and they're in really good form at the minute, undefeated as well in this league still at the minute. I think it'll be a tough ask for Vikings C to get one over Harlequins A. And then the other game is Harlequins B against Valkyries B. Harlequins B still looking for points to avoid being relegated, but I think Valkyries B will be too strong on the day, and that's at 2:05 at KWC.
Let's look down to Ladies Division 2 then, and there are 3 games there tomorrow.
And the first game is at 11:05, and this sees Castletown D against Vikings C at 11:05 at Castle Rushen High School. I'm going to go for a Castletown D win there. Second game is Valkyries C against Ramsey B. This is at 12:35 at QE2. I'm going to go for a Ramsey B win there. And then the final game in this league is Harlequins B against Castletown C, 3:35 at Castle Rushen High School. And you just have to say Castletown C will just get that one on the day.
Castletown D, a newly formed team this year and top of the league. What's been the secret to the success so far?
It's interesting because the C team are only just a point behind. But when they met in the league, the C and the D, they drew 1-1. So I think they've pretty much, Castletown have got them two teams really evenly matched. And just the D team have had better fortune really than the C team have.
rounding off the senior leagues this weekend, men's Division 2, we've got 2 games there tomorrow.
And the first game in this league is Bacchus C against Castertown C, and that's at 2:05 at Castle Rushen High School. Going to go for a Castertown C win there just. The final game is Ramsey B against Bacchus Colts, 3:35 at Ramsey Grammar School, and I'm going to go for a Ramsey B win there.
Last but certainly not least, as ever, the mixed under-15s league, we have 3 games there on Saturday.
And the first game in this league sees Ramsey Rogues and Rascals against Castertown Sharks at 11:05 at QE2. Castertown Savers against Backers at 11:05 at the NSC. And then the final game is Vikings against Valkyries, 3:35 at QE2.
Manx Radio Sport.
That's all we have time for on Friday Sport Preview this evening. Many thanks to my guests this week, Tony Mepham, Dave, Christian and Ben Cunningham. Have yourself a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend. And just a reminder, with that amber weather warning for ice and frost, if your travel is essential and you do have to go out, please do travel safely across the island. That's all for now. So until next time, goodbye.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.